Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us for our last Superintendent Speaker Series of the school year. This is our literacy speaker series. You may remember this has been rescheduled. This is the third time's a charm. So we're able to actually have our speaker series tonight. All the other times we actually had inclement weather days, we had snow days. So I want to welcome you all to our speaker series on literacy this evening. I want to thank our director of ELA and reading, Christy Carroll, for being with us this evening. She's going to really shed some light on our ELA, our reading, and touch upon the science of reading this evening also. So I thank you all again for joining us. Again, all of our speaker series will be recorded and will be available on our district website for future reference. But without further ado, I want to welcome our Director of ELA and Reading, Christy Carroll. I turn it over to you.
All right. Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Brownhall. I'm very excited and appreciative for this opportunity to share the exciting literacy learning experiences that are happening in our elementary, middle, and high schools. Over the course of this evening's presentation, we'll discuss and take a closer look at literacy through our K through 12 ELA program, one chapter at a time, together as we watch students actively engage in their own learning. Tonight's presentation is broken down into 7 chapters: the K through 12 literacy program overview, elementary school, middle school, high school, the NYSED Literacy Initiative and Literacy Briefs, and the Science of Reading. At the conclusion of our formal presentation, we'll have time for questions and answers. So let's begin with Chapter 1, K through 12 Literacy in our English Language Arts program. The foundation of our English Language Arts program and literacy learning in our district is built on the New York State Next Generation ELA Learning Standards, the district's strategic plan, and the district's DEI plan. We have also been positively influenced by the resources and direction that the NYSED Literacy Initiative and NYSED Literacy Briefs have provided. This next slide is a snapshot of the New York State Next Generation Learning Standards timeline. These standards were adopted in 2017, and full implementation began in 2022. As you can see in the state's graphic, the first administration of the new Regents exam in ELA aligned to the new standards is slated for June 2026, which is next school year. Prior to the Next Generation Learning Standards were the Common Core Learning Standards. The Next Generation Standards are more of a revision of the Common Core Standards rather than a complete departure. Some of the changes that were made to reflect current research on literacy include a greater emphasis on the connection and integration between reading and writing, a better balance between nonfiction and literary texts, a greater emphasis on text complexity, and a focus on students building the skills needed to become lifelong readers, writers, and critical thinkers. Our K through 12 literacy program also carefully weaves in the goals of our district strategic plan, our district DEI plan, and SEL best practices for our students. We know through current science of reading research how important it is that each of these frameworks are integrated carefully together rather than living in their own silos to create the most positive impact on our learners. I'll spend some time later in the presentation talking about the NYSED Literacy Initiative and the NYSED Literacy Briefs, as well as sharing a video of the author of the literacy briefs as she works with our K through 12 principals. In terms of the role that the initiative and the briefs play in our literacy program, NYSED has provided valuable and highly effective resources, information, and professional development for literacy leaders around the science of reading research. Their resources have helped shape our learning as the literary landscape in the greater world continues to shift. In terms of our kindergarten through grade 12 program, there is intentionality and planning to ensure it is vertically and horizontally aligned, meaning we want to ensure a similar learning experience across all grade levels and buildings in ELA, as well as when literacy interventions are needed for students. Our program values and addresses the unique learning styles and needs of all learners at all levels, and learning is differentiated to ensure access to the curriculum for all students. At the core of our program, and again, based on our New York State standards, there is a focus on the continued growth, development, achievement, and success in reading, writing, listening, and speaking, and language skills. Depending on the level, elementary, middle, or high school, there may be an increase in independence or in complexity, but ultimately, these skills are at the heart and soul of our program and the foundation for the advanced literacies that all learners will need in our changing world. Our ELA classrooms are student-centered, content-rich, highly engaging environments that immerse students in literacy, whether you enter a first grade classroom or a 10th grade classroom. You'll have the opportunity shortly to take a closer look into some of our classrooms at every level and see this in action. Our classrooms are also spaces where student collaboration is fostered and nurtured. The connection between reading and writing is an important one that is discussed in detail in one of the NYSED literacy briefs. There is extensive research to support how important this connection is, specifically how reading fuels writing skills and how writing promotes reading skills. So we emphasize practices and strategies to support this connection for students. We also provide students many opportunities to share their voice through writing assignments or activities, projects, or peer collaboration opportunities. We foster the verbal and written communication skills needed for college and career readiness. We are ultimately responsible to prepare all of our learners for the next step. So one of my key messages tonight is that literacy is a kindergarten through grade 12 endeavor, and it lives across all content areas. So let's move on now to the second chapter of our presentation, literacy for our youngest learners, our elementary students. Our elementary years are a time of rapid growth, and literacy is no exception. During this stage, we're building a literacy foundation for our students. Our strong Tier 1 programs in phonics and phonemic awareness, coupled with highly effective instruction in reading and writing, provide students in grades K through 4 with the foundational skills that allow them to evolve and become increasingly more independent as they grow as learners throughout the elementary grades. Other components of the ELA program at the elementary level include handwriting and cursive instruction, as well as grammar and word study instruction. ELA classrooms are immersive environments that use many highly effective teaching strategies to engage all learners. Some of these include engaging students through partner work, group work, whole class activities, individualized works, and conferring with the teacher. In addition, supports are provided to ensure that all students are able to access the curriculum. K through 4 classrooms focus on the Big 6 skills and competencies as identified in the NYSED literacy briefs as being essential based on the science of reading research. These are phonological awareness. Sorry, I think I just jumped a slide. I'm so sorry about that. And go back to that. I want you to be able to see all of those. All right. Phonics, comprehension, fluency, vocabulary, and oral language. As part of our continued efforts to ensure our practices are aligned to the most current evidence-based research, we have begun piloting K-8 science of reading-based programs. And now I'll take you into our classrooms where you can see our highly effective teachers and amazing elementary students in action. The first video is a clip from Dodge Elementary School, where you'll see teacher Jillian Weber with her kindergarten students as they learn together during a U-Fly phonics lesson. The second video is a clip from Forest Elementary School, where you'll see teacher Julia Hagedorn with her first grade students as they engage together in a Haggerty phonemic awareness lesson. Let's take a look.
All right, boys and girls, are you ready to start our phonics lesson?
Yes.
We've been learning about what letter?
R.
You got it. R says R. You say it.
R says R.
Nice work. All right, lowercase r. Is it tall or is it short?
Short.
Short. Little line down, swim back up and over. Say it with me.
Little line
Down, swim back up and over.
UFly is a systematic approach to teaching phonics. It's very explicit and we're receiving great outcomes with our learners. I want you to take that G and that R sound apart. Watch me. Grip. G, R, I, P. Grip. You try it.
Grip. Grip.
As a part of UFly, what you're seeing here is part of the auditory process. The students are segmenting and blending words. You see them pounding and tapping so that they hear each sound in each word and put them back together to say the word. Remember, we're using that tricky R today that we sometimes hear with another consonant. So we have to make sure we say each sound so that we don't miss any of our letters when we're building our word. Your first word is, hands up, crib. Crib. Each sound. R, I, B. Crib. Go ahead and build it. All right, I want you to change I to A. Change I to A. R, I. Did you hear that? It needs to be here. R, I. Good girl. Now change I to A. Check your new word in your head. And when I snap, you can read it out loud. Ready? Nice job. During the section of the lesson where the new concept is being taught, one thing that is done is word work. Here you'll notice the students both encoding and decoding words using magnetic letters on their tables. This allows the children to change and manipulate sounds, to spell words, and to create new words. Listen, say it with me. Trip. Let's pound and tap it. Trip. R, I, trip. Check and see what letter you're changing to change grip to trip. Ooh, wow, I thought I could trick you guys, but you did a really good job. What did you do to change to the word trip? What did you do, Ella?
Change the C to a T.
I'm very impressed with the progress my students are making using UFly. They're transferring their knowledge to both their reading and writing and are very successful kindergartners.
Robe. Bus.
In Haggerty, this is one of the most important parts of the lesson. Students are practicing listening to words and manipulating them. We blend phonemes, listen for middle vowel sounds, segment words, and substitute phonemes.
Say tone.
Tone.
Change t to z.
Zone.
Say wove.
Wove.
Change w to
Toe.
Doing phonemic awareness daily has helped the students to break words into smaller parts when they are reading and writing. It helps them to become stronger readers and writers.
So remember we've been reading stories, okay, about Kate and Luke. Do you remember that?
Yes.
In this picture, and their dad, right? And we've been listening for those long vowels. Kate and Luke are almost done helping Dad. Dad holds the water hose close to the roses. "Please don't get the hose on my phone," said Luke, patting his pocket. Would anyone like to raise their hand and tell me a long O that you heard in a word, or a word with a long O? Sarah?
Hose.
Hose, right? That has that long O. What else?
Rope.
Rope. Very good. Rose, you heard that one too?
No.
No, yeah, awesome.
In this lesson, we worked on the long vowel O. The few weeks before this lesson, we worked on other long vowels. The students are learning what a magic or silent E does at the end of the word.
few things happened here. Sarah, what happened?
We took away the E and the P.
Took away the E and the P. What did I replace the P with?
A B.
A B. And so what is this word gonna say?
Rob.
Rob. Very good, because now this O makes a short O sound. Here, the students are practicing new sight words they learned on their dry erase board. It is important for students to practice writing words they are learning. In this lesson, I decided to have them use dry erase boards. In other lessons, they use the spell tabs that are part of the Haggerty program. Having different multisensory options is helpful for all learners. Clara, Camelia. Each student has a workbook that goes with each unit. The book is helpful to reinforce learning. Students are able to do this independently and practice their handwriting. After the lesson is taught, they get their book and do an activity in the book that goes with the lesson. It is either reading or writing the new sight words learned, reading a passage that uses the new skill learned, or writing sentences with a mix of both the sight words and the skills learned that week.
Before we move on to our next chapter, middle school, I'd like to share one more elementary video clip. This next video takes us into Maple East Elementary, where we'll hear from our principal, Dr. Bill Bowen, our district literacy coach, Dr. Melissa Johnson, as well as a couple of our teachers and even a student about a building-wide literacy and student identity project using Read Aloud.
Every year at Maple East, we select a book to use as a building-wide read aloud in September to kick off the school year. This year we selected I Am Enough by Grace Byers, and the reason we do this is to build school community, build classroom community, where we're all looking at the same book, we're reading the same book. We specifically read it through the lens of identity and self-awareness.
Like the trees, I'm here to grow. Like the mountains, I'm here to stand. Like time, I'm here to be and be everything I can.
What we did through the Read Aloud plan is we've allowed students the opportunity to build identity webs for themselves, and that provokes really great conversation amongst students talking about their families, their values, what matters to them.
This is my daddy, this is my mommy, this is my big sister who's in 2nd grade.
The Heart Map is an opportunity for students to be able to share some of their favorite things, their family, and what makes them themselves. It allows them to really feel more comfortable within a classroom setting. It's a way for them to make connections within the classroom, and it's a way for them to make connections with the entire school.
A goal is just really to get the kids to be aware of how many little parts make up the whole person, and then they share those with their classmates. For 3rd grade, it really got them talking. You know, my family came from this continent, we're this heritage, that kind of thing. And I think it just shows the community how diverse our student body is and just how amazing they truly are.
Family, Italian, Bill's youngest. I'm the youngest in my family of 3 siblings. And I love the Bills. I just went to the Bills game.
Everyone did some version of this project and they're all displayed. And it's just really exciting for the kids to walk through the building and see all the different displays and to see how each grade level or classroom in particular took their own spin to it. I hope that they enjoy doing something, and when they use technology, they're using it for creation. They're creating something, they're creating a project, they're not just consuming and being on technology. They're using it to show themselves and how they can be creative. They're so different and unique, each one of the projects.
This work has helped us achieve many of our literacy and also DEI goals here at Maple East. We have so many cultures and ethnicities, religions, and languages represented here at Maple East that this has really given all kids the opportunity to share more about themselves with the classroom. So it's really built classroom community, it's built school community, and we plan on revisiting this work throughout the school year.
All right, and that closes the chapter on our fabulous elementary students and takes us on to the 3rd chapter of our evening, middle school. What a wonderful time for learning it is in middle school ELA. By the time students enter middle school, they have acquired a solid foundation in literacy, and it's time for increased independence. Students are provided more opportunities to elevate their voice, and their increased literacy skills demand this. They share their thoughts, ideas, and opinions, and teachers are strategic and thoughtful about ways to do this so that all voices may be heard and all students might have the opportunity to share. There are also many opportunities for collaboration as students build literacy skills by working together. At this stage, students are becoming more independent readers and writers, and the texts they read are becoming more complex. Students are taught strategies to grapple with this complexity as they begin to develop lifelong skills. They are developing depth in the structure and organization of their writing as they begin to become more skilled in being able to write for different audiences and purposes. In terms of intervention at the middle level, we implemented the use of a universal screener this year as one more method of identifying students who may qualify for literacy intervention. Parents of students at this level are able to access this data and explanation about the scores and wits. In addition, and as mentioned earlier, we've begun piloting science of reading-based ELA programs at this level as well. Finally, at the middle level, we continue to ensure that there are supports in place so that all students can access the curriculum. Now for the best part of each chapter, our teachers and students. In this next video, you'll see two of our middle school teachers from Mill Middle, Amy Tulowicki and Megan Quino, and their 7th grade and 5th grade students as they engage in their lesson on collaborative book clubs. Let's watch.
So are you anxious to see what your book is? There was a lot of choices of the same book for some classes, but this class has a really nice mix. I think we have 6 or 7 book clubs. So here's what you're going to do today on this first day of our book club groupings.
At the start of book clubs, the teachers allow students choice in book club selections, and launch day builds excitement because students find out which books they will read and who they will be reading the books with.
Basketball, Venom, Josh Bell, and his twin brother Jordan are kings on the court, with crossovers that make even tougher scholars cry.
I like to read, and I love these types of books in verse, and I just think it's a good book overall.
Students have time to peruse their books with their group, which builds engagement and excitement across the club and gives them an opportunity to read the back cover and first few pages in more detail.
What was something about the book that drew you to it?
The track.
Was it the track? Are you a runner yourself?
Yeah, I like to run.
Okay, so you can connect to the story. How about you, Matt?
I just like all those books that he makes and
the author's style. Yeah. Jason Reynolds is a great author.
As the unit progresses, students continue to take ownership of their books by creating reading plans, notebook entries, and conversation topics to grow thinking.
So I'm reading Love and Gelato, and the reason I chose this book was because I've always liked mysteries, and the blurb on the back was very intriguing, and it made the book sound like really interesting, like very mysterious, I guess.
I picked the same book, Love and Gelato. I probably picked it because the cover was interesting, and the way our teacher explained the book, it seemed like a good book to read.
When a club talks, what that talk looks like and what that talk sounds like, okay? So Zaria, can you share with us what's one thing we noticed in the book club video today that club did really well during their conversation?
When one person is talking, no one else is talking over.
So our 5th graders are currently in a unit called Interpretation Book Clubs, and in Bend 1 of this unit, they learn how to write well about their reading, but all of what they're learning is applied to an independent reading book. So they have practice independently before in Bend 2 of our unit, we go into a book club setting where they're reading together. And now they start drawing on all that they know about writing well in reading and interpreting it in their book club text with their club members.
We all put down that how it is having a hard time losing weight.
So on the first day of the second part of the unit, the students learned book club norms, how a club should sound, how a club should look, and after giving them some feedback on
what I know about clubs and what they know about being in clubs previously. They were set out to write their own constitutions, the rules and the guidelines of that they're gonna follow every day that they meet in a club. So although they're reading together, their talk days only happen 3 times a week, where they're given that 5 to 10 minute time frame to share out their ideas and thinking and learn from one another.
Set up that journal so that your club has agreed upon a format to show your thinking on small ideas.
In Bend 2 of our unit, the students start to take ownership of their reading, how they write about their reading, and the decisions that they make with the club members they're reading with.
I think it's much more exciting because you get to share ideas with the community around you.
You get to share things, but also then other people might think of it differently, so you can connect and add on more, and it's really fun to see other people's ideas and hear about them.
I'm looking for students to be referring to the thoughts that they wrote about in their notebooks, looking back in their books to find evidence to support that thinking. And this part of our unit really dives deeply into elements of literature. So students should be discussing their characters, their setting, the problems and lessons that they're noticing from their book, ultimately to be able to dive deeper into interpretations on theme, uncovering those life lessons and messages that their book is teaching them through their characters' actions, words, and thinking.
At the cafeteria, he was eating alone. And for the life lesson, don't be embarrassed, because he was really, really embarrassed when he was alone.
Howard is new to the school, so I would say that a life lesson is just try to make friends and try not to be alone, because it'll kind of pull you down. You want to kind of stay up.
Book clubs is one of my favorite units of the year, not only because I see the joy in the children's eyes and the meaningful conversations that take place, but we also read a book together called Home of the Brave, where each day we dive into chapters and apply what we're learning in our mini lessons. So to see them engaged in a book together as a class and enjoying that before they go off and read in their book club books and write about those is life-changing, especially with the lessons that we uncover from our read aloud text together.
So for our 4th chapter of the evening, we focus on our high school students. When we shift toward thinking about them as learners, our literacy focus shifts to the advanced literacy skills required of students to be college and career ready, with an emphasis on critical thinking, oral and written communication skills, presentation skills, highly effective writing skills, and collaboration skills. In addition, text complexity and sophistication in terms of what students are expected to be able to read is increasing, and the same holds true of the writing tasks students are required to tackle. Instructional strategies used by our skilled teachers prepare students to read and write for a wide variety of audiences and purposes. Students are also provided with many opportunities to hone their communication skills through individual and group presentations. Students engage in deep research and the writing to support research. Students are becoming independent and critical thinkers, and our ELA classrooms support this growth and development. Our high school catalogs provide many pathways to graduation and allow students choices that include Regents level courses, honors level courses, AP, meaning advanced placement courses, SUPA, meaning Syracuse University Project Advanced Dual Credit courses, and English electives such as film study, creative writing, speech and communications, theater, media literacy, and journalism. And we continue to provide supports to ensure that all students have access to the curriculum, as we have at all of the other levels. And now, for our final look this evening into our classrooms, we're going to step into North High School to see teacher Jackie Gerken and her students as they collaborate in book clubs. And then following Jackie, we'll visit teacher Kelly Fritz and her students as they work in groups and collaborate. Let's take a look.
You're going to pick up where you left off the other day. You should have out your notes on diction and syntax, because you're going to use those sentence structures for that analysis. This is English 10A, and students a couple of weeks ago chose from a series of 7 books. They all focus on the theme of resilience, and they picked the book they would like to read, so they are in their book groups. And this week's initiative involved their finding a poem that connects
with their book group book.
There's hardly, is it any movement, I think?
Yes.
Okay. And then it is, gotcha there.
The book that we chose was All But My Life by Gerda Weissman Klein, and the reason we chose this book was because we thought it was the most interesting topic about the Holocaust.
The poem that we chose was The Coming of Night.
We chose this poem for the book because it showed signs of resilience.
Syntax refers to line length, order of words and phrases, how punctuation functions. So they learn how to examine that and analyze that, and then they are applying that to the reading of the poem that they have selected. Diction refers to word choice, so they're analyzing the impact or the effect of specific word choices in the poem.
How the author's message is like sent through, because it's the last line of the poem. The last line of the poem is, for the first time that year my entire world stood still. Like, the period kind of is a symbolism of that.
I guess I'm always impressed at how well the students work with each other, that they are experienced with working in groups. They're respectful, they support each other's learning, and they also challenge each other, which is interesting to see, and they force each other to even go back into the text to make sure that they are accurate with their interpretations.
Like, it's like that blackness is like depression or like
I think it's relating to stress.
Yeah.
Stress, depression, something like that.
Yeah. And then at the very end, the world stood still. That's like the end of all the stress.
Well, what's really the best part of the book groups is when students are leaving and talking about what they read and that they were excited about what they read. And, you know, they have a target for each week of the reading. And sometimes students, it's nice to hear them reading ahead, and I'll have another student say, well, I haven't get there, so don't spoil that for me. So there is a general interest and excitement in the books, and they certainly hold each other accountable for the reading. I think the other benefit is if one student didn't quite understand a scene, a moment, a plot point, they can talk among themselves and build their understanding of what they read.
I am giving us something fun to do. We are going to be drawing on these poster boards maps of Maycomb, the town, into Kill a Mockingbird.
So we are reading To Kill a Mockingbird. We are currently in chapter 15, so we're about to get into the trial. A lot is about to take place. And I thought it was really important that my students have a really firm understanding of setting, the setting of Maycomb, the town they live in, and how that setting influences both characterization and also context. So how our characters live and exist in the world that they live in and how that's impacted by their setting.
Oh, it says Mrs. Hamilton Lafayette de Beau's house with 2 doors to the north of us.
Yes. What direction is north? Think about where would it be now.
Mrs. DuBose's house is north of the fences.
Yeah, so it crosses the street.
So hers will be across the street.
What we're doing in terms of the book is we are drawing a little scale like map of the town where everybody's houses are to kind of like get a good idea of it.
When they had to do that active thinking and collaborate and work together on that to create their own visual, now they're not just reading the novel, right? They're imagining. They have a context for what's going on, and they're able to be further engaged and further invested in this world that we're building.
It helped me visualize what's really going on more in depth from when I could just imagine it. Drawing it actually helped me get more connected to the book.
Seeing those light bulb moments where the students have to create their own thinking and put those pieces together, that's really what being an educator, specifically an ELA educator, is all about.
Okay, so I really hope you all enjoyed seeing all of our teachers and students engaged in all of the learning this evening. I'd like to warmly and sincerely thank all of the teachers and all of the students who participated in all of these videos, and everyone who was willing to open their classrooms and share their learning experiences with us. I think it's the very best part of our evening. So great job to all of you, and thank you so much for participating. All right, so moving on to our next chapter, Chapter 5, the NYSED Literacy Initiative. While this could be an entire presentation unto itself, I'm going to highlight a few major points this evening. I'll provide some background on the literacy initiative as well as the literacy briefs. I'll talk about 3 specific briefs called the instructional briefs. I'll explain the importance of the role of writing, and I'll introduce you to the author of the briefs, Dr. Noni K. Lasso. So, beginning with some background on the NYSED Literacy Initiative. NYSED is committed to ensuring all students across the state have access to high-quality literacy instruction, including the resources they use and the instructional practices implemented by teachers in the classroom. As a result, they are working to provide high-quality professional learning opportunities and resources for instructional leaders and teachers aligned with evidence-based practices. Last January, NYSED hosted a statewide hybrid webinar for instructional leaders across the state that allowed us to participate live at our regional BOCES. This format allowed for local collaboration as well as statewide sharing and discussion. During this live webinar, the NYSED literacy briefs were introduced by one of the co-authors, Dr. Noni K. Lasso, Dean of the Harvard Graduate School of Education. The brief series is made up of 7 briefs and is intended to provide guidance on the science of reading, which is 50+ years of ongoing interdisciplinary research. We'll be hearing more about the science of reading research from our very own district literacy coach, Dr. Melissa Johnson, later in our program this evening. The literacy briefs are also intended to be used by districts to facilitate discussions between district leaders and teachers and to help build a common understanding, knowledge base, and provide steps forward. 3 of the briefs, numbers 4, 5, and 6, are focused specifically on literacy instruction from pre-K through grade 12 based on the most recent science of reading research. The first focuses specifically on pre-K, the second on the elementary years, and the third on the secondary years. By designing the instructional briefs in the sequential format, the authors were able to address and demonstrate how the structures, processes, and practices should look and develop at each of these levels. For example, the very high level of engagement you see in a literacy lesson in a 1st grade classroom should be similar to what you see if you were to enter a 10th grade classroom. In either scenario, students would be at the center of their learning, engaged in talk and discussion about rich content. As students move from pre-K to elementary to secondary, the content, tasks, and the demand on students become more complex and sophisticated. The instructional briefs help provide a roadmap for these practices and engage with stakeholders in discussions about them. Before we leave the instructional briefs, I also wanted to mention that these briefs provide information on additional supports for readers with special or additional needs. Let's focus for a few minutes on brief number 3. I wanted to highlight this specific brief because of its significance on literacy. While research has demonstrated a connection for many years, current literacy research places a strong emphasis on the importance of the reciprocity between reading and writing. Even as our earliest learners are engaging with reading and writing, the more often students read, the stronger they become as writers. The more opportunities students have to develop and refine their writing skills, the stronger they become as readers. If you take a look at the graphic on top, it demonstrates the concept that reading fuels the writer with ideas, language, and ways to structure writing, while writing fuels the reader with the ability to think critically while building their language and knowledge. The graphic on the bottom is demonstrating that there are key cognitive and linguistic skills that support the development of reading and writing, such as executive function skills and academic language and vocabulary development. Reading and writing are interconnected and are most effectively taught together to allow students to experience these reciprocal benefits. While I've only provided a brief overview of the literacy briefs and the extensive information they provide, I hope this gives you an idea of how valuable this resource is for districts. As I mentioned earlier, the literacy briefs were co-authored by Dr. Noni K. Lasso, Dean of the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Our district has been incredibly fortunate in that we have been able to consult with Dr. Lasso. Earlier this year, she met with our K-12 principals, as well as some of our directors, for a day of professional learning on literacy. Let's take a look and hear from Dr. Lasso herself.
In the sense of partnerships, I really try to reserve them for teams that are really ready, meaning like we've got a growth mindset, we're working hard, we want help, we want to keep accelerating.
There are two changes that are really important to call out in the literacy landscape. The first is the research has become more and more sophisticated and more clear and sharp about how to organize for improved literacy. The second major change is that we can no longer be successful with basic literacy skills. All of our students today need advanced literacy skills to thrive. So we are teaching to a different level and with a different purpose than in years past.
We're going to have to think about driving up the literacy and communication skills in the context of our students needing to really develop both their interpersonal skills, their ability to work with others and learn from others and communicate effectively with others, and their intrapersonal, which is what do I understand about myself and myself as a learner, my problem-solving ability, I need to work on my analytic skills, those are within.
We are working with school districts and states and communities to design the kind of literacy learning environments that we know all students need to become more critical thinkers, flexible thinkers, to work collaboratively, and to use their language and literacy skills to work towards their schooling and academic success over time.
If you look at a large-scale analysis of U.S. job descriptions, here's what you get. I need oral and written communication skills.
The role of literacy in our world, in our professional and our personal lives, has changed dramatically, even in the last 2 decades. What our students need for today and tomorrow is very high degrees of literacy, of vocabulary, of comprehension skills. They need literacy as a tool for life to be successful in their personal and professional lives. The science is telling us that there is a real sophisticated but simple way to organize literacy systems in our schools, in our classrooms, in our districts. We need good assessment, good curriculum, and strong professional learning, and that is very doable to get us to where we need to go.
So that concludes our segment on the NYSED Literacy Initiative. I hope you found that information to be helpful. In reflecting on what we just discussed, I want to emphasize that the literacy briefs are NYSED's K-12 practical resource for districts regarding the science of reading research. I mentioned earlier in the program that we would hear from our very own district literacy coach, Dr. Melissa Johnson, as she delves deeper into this topic for us in Chapter 6 of this evening's program. Let's listen to Melissa now.
The science of reading refers to a body of research spanning over 50 years that documents and describes how children develop both reading and writing skills. The science of reading reflects research in a variety of fields, such as education, neuroscience, psychology, linguistics, implementation science, speech and language pathology, and sociology. The integration of research from a variety of disciplines creates a comprehensive understanding of the reading and writing process. It is important to note that the science of reading is not one single approach, program, or entity. Rather, it refers to a large, diverse body of evidence that should be used to inform both curriculum and pedagogy. Brain science is a foundational component of the science of reading. In recent years, our knowledge of how the brain acquires the skill of reading has evolved. We now have a deeper understanding of how the brain processes multiple sources of information during reading. Brain researchers have studied the brain using MRI scans, which have identified areas and networks of the brain involved in processing print, speech sounds, language, and meaning. In simplistic terms, when we read, our brain transforms shapes of letters on a page into sounds of spoken language attached with meaning. Therefore, as you learn to read, your brain is evolving and changing. This information informs our instruction when supporting students in their reading development. A key element of the science of reading is known as the simple view of reading. This visual shows that reading comprehension is not the sum, but the product of two components, word recognition and language comprehension. the ability to decode words and comprehend language are required to master reading comprehension. It is important to note that the formula uses a multiplication sign because weakness in either component, decoding or language comprehension, will lead to diminished reading comprehension. Therefore, it is essential that students develop capacity in both decoding and language comprehension to become successful readers. Scarborough's reading rope provides a more in-depth understanding of the simple view of reading. Scarborough's rope is a visual metaphor for the development of reading skills over time. The strands in the rope represent the necessary components that lead to skilled reading. In Scarborough's reading rope, the strands of language comprehension are background knowledge, such as facts and concepts, vocabulary, language structures, such as syntax and semantics, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge, such as genres and text structures. The word recognition strands are phonological awareness, which includes hearing and articulating syllables and phonemes, decoding, which involves letter-sound correspondences, and sight word recognition. This visual demonstrates how all the strands are woven together and how each element works in orchestration to strengthen students' reading skills. The science of reading encompasses 50+ years of research across a variety of disciplines that is grounded in brain research. Both the simple view of reading and Scarborough's reading rope provide both a visual and conceptual understanding of reading processes and skills. Our teachers utilize these tenets to inform instructional decisions to ensure all students grow and develop in literacy.
Okay, I hope that video provided a helpful overview of what the science of reading is and that it helped clarify the major components we're talking about when we use this terminology. For our final chapter, and before we move on to our question and answer segment, I'd like to review some of the major highlights from this evening's presentation. We've discussed our kindergarten through grade 12 ELA literacy program, and we've highlighted each of the levels: elementary school, middle school, and high school. We talked about the NYSED Literacy Initiative, the NYSED Literacy Briefs, and their impact on literacy in our schools. And finally, we addressed the science of reading. I'd also like to highlight some of the major points from the evening. It's an essential part of our ELA program from kindergarten through grade 12 to ensure we're supporting all of our learners on their path toward academic growth and success. We are always working hard to ensure we're providing students with a deep and rich foundation in literacy and communication skills at all levels and developing those skills over time. We know how important it is for students to be active participants in their own literacy learning, so we build many opportunities for student voice, choice, discussion, and collaboration in our ELA classrooms. It's at the heart of what we do to foster a love of reading and writing and to engage students so they become lifelong readers and writers. We talked about the reading and writing connection and how we ensure there are many opportunities for students at all levels to write for different audiences and purposes. Ultimately, we prepare all of our students, from our earliest learners to our graduating seniors, with the advanced literacies needed to be successful in today's society. Thank you so much for watching and listening. That concludes our formal presentation. At this time, we'll move on to the question and answer part of the evening. Okay, so questions and answers are small, so I'm going to go ahead and throw my glasses on for this. All right, so there is a question about middle schooler getting support in phonics. That's a great question. So to answer your question, I think I might have addressed it a little bit earlier regarding the how we implemented a universal screener this year. So I'm going to start there just for a second because I'm not exactly sure where the question starts. So I'm going to try to give you a comprehensive answer. So we implemented a screener this year because typically a universal screener is required at the K4 level. And so we implemented it at the middle school level this year as well, because we recognize that there are kids in the middle school and even potentially at the high school level that could need phonics assistance as well. So the universal screener would identify students who could have these decoding issues. And if they are caught through this universal screening process or in other ways, because there are other ways to determine that students would have these needs, then we would recommend them for intervention. And intervention would come in the form of working with a reading specialist potentially. They would get reading supports. So to answer that question, and I think I'm answering it, a student in middle school could receive support in phonics through a reading specialist. That would be the individual who would provide that support. Our reading specialists in K through 12 in the district are all trained in UFly phonics. We also have supports, our reading specialists are trained in phonemic awareness interventions and many other types of interventions, but basically that question, there's other types of supports, but for that specific one, I think that what you're looking for is more or less, I think that would cover it. Okay, we'll look at some of the other questions now. So there's a question about like, who would I go to if I have questions about progress, my child's progress in literacy or ELA? So that's a great question. Parents are always wondering, like, where is the first place to go if I have a question for my student? And it's a great question. So the place I would always start, the person who knows the most about your child is always going to be your teacher. The child's teacher is always the best place to start. So that teacher is working with your child on a regular basis. That building knows your child. So my best recommendation is always to start with your child's teacher. They can help work with you. And certainly if you need to enlist the building principal, that's always another person who you could go to work with you. They're all very supportive and have lots of information about your child and how to support them. So I hope that helps provide some information there. All right, let me see if there's other questions. There's a question about the difference between SUPA courses and AP courses and how you get credit. So let me see if I can try to break this down a little bit. So AP or advanced placement courses, they are from the College Board, and the way advanced placement courses work are students enroll in these courses and then they take a test at the end of the year. And if students get a certain score on the test, and it varies depending on the college, then they can earn credit and a college will accept it for college credit. The difference between the way that works and like a SUPA course or other dual enrollment courses, those are actually college credit-based courses, meaning that a student enrolled in a dual credit course is earning high school credit for a course and they're earning college credit for the course. They just have to earn the minimum grade requirement for it, and they would have to pay whatever the tuition rate is. Typically, that tuition rate, though, is a very low rate compared to what you would pay for it if you had to pay for it at an actual college. So generally, it's a wonderful bargain for parents for a student to earn college credits through a high school course that's dual credit, rather than taking those same credits in college. And they're pretty widely accepted now. It's actually a really nice benefit for parents. So hopefully that explains that a little bit. And we do have SUPA is the course, those are the courses that are available in the English department. Other areas have other dual credit courses, but in English, we offer SUPA courses through Syracuse University. All right, I think I have time for one more. So there's a question about all these acronyms I use. I know I used a lot of acronyms. I tried to catch some of them along the way and explain them, but I'll go through one more time. So SEL, and now I'm like, I think my brain is getting tired at the end of the day, but social emotional learning. And I think many of you have heard that term quite a bit. But that's social emotional learning. And I think I mentioned that early on because it's important literacy research shows that we want to teach social emotional learning along with literacy versus teaching that in silo. It's part of our learning. And I think I mentioned it along with DEI in the beginning, diversity, equity, and inclusion, because the latest research shows that all of these things are taught in the literacy classroom together, and then students respond better to the learning. So that's where I mentioned that. NYSED, by the way, is a New York State Education Department. So we mentioned that quite a bit. And I think the last two that I mentioned were the SUPA, I think I just said, which is Syracuse University Project Advance. So I think I have covered most of the acronyms that I had earlier this evening. I think that's it for our question and answer period.
Christy, thank you so much. This was phenomenal. A lot of information in only an hour, but we were able to get through it. Those instructional videos were so very helpful also. We appreciate our teachers being filmed so that we can use this as a reference. So again, thank you so much. I know there are a few questions we weren't able to get to, but all of our parents and our community members are able to email Christy Carroll. You can find the email on our website. So email Christy your questions and she will be sure to respond. Again, Christy, thank you very much for all of that information. And this wraps up our final superintendent speaker series of the school year. We were finally able to get our ELA and reading in. So again, thank you for joining us this evening. Christy, thank you for sharing all that information also. Everyone have a wonderful night. And again, if you have any questions, be sure to email Christy. Be well. Take care now. Bye-bye.